Real quickly, Mr. Coleman, what's your profession? What's your education, your profession?
I'm educated at Wesleyan University. I was educated at Northeastern School of Law. I run the Advanced Biofuels Business Council and represent the lowest carbon fuel companies in the world.
Okay, and so you're an attorney?
Yes.
Is that, okay. And you work for the, can you?
Advanced Biofuels Business Council.
Okay, the Business Council.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Dr. DeCicco, your profession? You're a mechanical engineer, and who do you work for?
I work for the University of Michigan at the Energy Institute.
Before I go into questions, is there anything you would like to respond to the claims that Mr. Coleman has said?
Sure, thanks for the opportunity. You know, science is never static. It moves, we learn things as time goes on. I hate to admit this, but in the mid-1990s, I was the author of the first academic paper to call for the use of life cycle analysis in regulation as an incentive to produce advanced biofuels, cellulosic fuels in particular. And it was based on the early studies that are the precursors and set the template for all the government models now in use. I didn't know then what I have since learned about the realities of the carbon cycle, and what I realized several years ago as I began picking apart the models and trying to understand, okay, why is there so much controversy here that never seems to get resolved, is that the government models, the GREET model, which has been the basis for so many of these claims, effectively violate the law of conservation of mass. They effectively, in the computer, create carbon for the sake of offsetting the carbon out of the tailpipe without bothering to check whether additional carbon has been removed from the atmosphere. Now, Mr. Coleman says, well, I'm raising some unproven theory about additionality. Additionality, you know, the need for additional carbon is just another word for the conservation of mass. There's no such thing as free carbon. Carbon is the fuel of life. You know, we have to be careful when we say willy-nilly, we need to decarbonize the economy. I personally don't want to be decarbonized, and I don't think any of us do. Our whole food chain and the whole carbon cycle by which plants at the base of the food chain take carbon from the air and utilize it to feed everything else is what's going on here. And if you take that, that's what I meant by you can't rob Peter to pay Paul. If you just take that carbon, it has to be made up somewhere else. So I am in a situation of someone kind of saying, well, the emperor has no clothes, because the emperor in this case is the Department of Energy and its models that became the template for the RFS, and EPA's models, which did its own modeling using a similar format, the same with the California Air Resources Board. And here I am coming along and saying, oops, you guys got it wrong. Your models violate conservation of mass. You haven't checked whether that carbon that you're crediting automatically against the tailpipe was actually additional carbon in the sense that it came out of the air without stealing from the food or feed system. So I certainly realize that my criticism of these biofuel policies does fly in the face of piles of publications, but unfortunately, those publications got it wrong.
Thank you. One quick question. I'm trying to get my hands around this carbon neutrality theory. And in layman's terms, the idea, the model was based on is we're going to grow more corn plants. Plants absorb carbon output. So therefore, the increased output by burning ethanol or producing ethanol will be absorbed by the increased production of corn plants. Is that a fair summary of the idea?
Oh.
And are we growing more plants to absorb?
We're growing a bit more. The key word that you said here is more. You know, In other words, if we had a barren piece of desert and then irrigated it, fertilized it, grew corn on it, then that piece of desert would be growing more corn in a way that takes more carbon out of the air than was previously being taken out. And then you could legitimately claim that that carbon in that corn feedstock offsets the emissions when the ethanol is burned. But I'm not aware that we're getting most of our corn from land that used to be barren deserts.
So it was used for other purposes. Okay.
That's
I
right.
say I'm out of time, Mr. Chairman. I think the world is turned upside down when we have the business community advocating for more government regulation and the environmental community advocating for not. So this is very interesting. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And